All right. Representative Bennett, you're recognized for a question. I would remind the committee we're approaching the 11 o'clock hour.
Okay. So as I said, trying to work through this. I mean, we keep saying that this is consistent with other states and that this is consistent with federal law. So I went through the federal law and I highlighted in yellow what the federal law says, and I know this is not a very articulate way of showing it, but there is a lot in this bill that is neither in federal law or is it in most state laws. A lot of the state laws that I looked at have gone to whether you can force someone to provide a service that they don't religiously believe they should have to provide.
Hold on. What's your point?
Are we speaking to the amendment, or are we speaking to
Well,
the bill?
I've allowed some leeway here, so I'm going to let Representative Bennett to continue with her question, but I think this is going to be the last question. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time for public comment. So Representative Bennett, you're recognized for the final question.
No pressure. So basically, when I'm looking at this, I am just concerned about half of this bill that we're looking at now is Senate amendments. It's not a philosophical debate with me at this point. I think we're going well beyond the other states. I think we're going well beyond our other standards that we use in civil rights. You know, right now as I read this bill, Tony Alamo would be allowed to have his cult in Arkansas, because how would you ever come up with the standard that we've set for a governmental interest of the highest magnitude? We're basically setting this up as a whole new standard. And the second thing that bothers me that I wish you would address is that there's no reasonable standard for religion. So again, we're back to, as we talked about earlier, the religion of one. You know, it is what I believe. This Kleenex box is my God, and you cannot take my Kleenex box from me, because it basically is my personal religion, and that makes me very nervous that we're going to have a lot of people. I think we think we're protecting Christianity, but we're going to have a lot of people with some very odd beliefs coming in to sue under this law.
I'll address your last question first. I actually want to protect people who have odd beliefs if they have sincerely held positions. I want to protect the Jehovah's Witness even if I don't agree with them. I want to protect any other group of people even if I don't agree with them. I think that's part of what our founders intended when they did this. Now, the issue of the religion of one, there is a lot of case law well established that says you've got to prove that you have a deeply held religious conviction. You know, is it a conviction or is it a preference? And then you go through all this checklist of different things that have to be read into it. So that is well established in the case law. It's well established that protecting a child's interest is compelling governmental interest. There's no question about that. So the Tony Alamo, it's gone. There's compelling governmental interest to protect the kids. There's compelling governmental interest to meet certain standards of the state. And the reason why I know this is we're not brand new in doing this. 31 other states already have a heightened strict scrutiny standard. You know, the federal government already has a heightened strict scrutiny standard. Every bit of the language in this is consistent. It either applies to try to make it shape what the federal courts have interpreted through different court decisions, or it directly references the federal RFRA, but maybe with language that make it a little more clear. And then going back to the amendments, every single one of the amendments actually clarified what our intent was. So that was a good portion of the amendments. Clarified that there's already compelling governmental interest to comply with federal civil rights laws, and clarified that the state itself is not going to be brought in and have to pay damages if they're not a party to the action. And having said all that, I would move for a good vote, and I'd move for a vote for concurrence on the Senate amendments.